What's up, y'all? Welcome back to The Mindful Athlete. I'm Felipe Costa, and today we have Carter Loflin here. Carter, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Today we're going to chat a little bit about your head, your mind, your mindset. First, let's go back, though. What kind of got you into golf? What inspired you?
Well, my dad, when he moved to Atlanta, got really into golf. He grew up in a very poor neighborhood in Memphis, so he was not introduced to it at an early age. But when he moved to Atlanta, there was a lot of golf courses there. He fell in love with it. So when he and my mom had me, he introduced me to it. He introduced my older brother to it before me. And he basically had me in tournaments from the time I was in a diaper. So I've been playing tournaments since I was probably 5, which when I tell some people on my team that, they're kind of like 5 years old is early, which it definitely is.
Yeah.
But no, I just kind of fell in love with it instantly. I think kind of the turning point for me with it though was when I was young, we moved houses, and it's still the house we live in today. But I live on like the 17th hole of a golf course now.
Really? Yeah.
And it was always really convenient because, I mean, it wasn't like a lot of golf course neighborhoods that you go in are like hundreds of houses. This was just happened to be a street that ran through the middle of the golf course, and it was like, I think we have like 12 houses on our street. And we're right at the bottom, like in the cul-de-sac, which is right next to the 18th fairway. So I'd always just walk down the hill, then walk up the hill to the clubhouse. So I never really had to have my parents drive me, which was a big deal since, you know, I could kind of just go and my own free will. So that was kind of how I got into it.
All right, so you say free will, but starting at 5. Right, you had your dad, what, was it like a forceful situation? He's like, son, I like the grass, you're going to hit on it.
No, it was more of a thing where like he'd take me with him to the golf course, and this was honestly like probably, you know, before I even learned to walk. But I just kind of grew an attraction to it, and you know, just kind of like I mentioned, like, you know, where I was able to walk to the golf course. I never really like, it was just, I was able to fall in love with it because I never had to ask my parents to take me. Mm-hmm. And they never had to make the time to take me. They never had to take like 30 minutes or an hour out of their day to like take me and pick me up. But my parents have always been very supportive of whatever I've chosen to do. They've never forced me to do anything. It's all kind of come about just from my own desires and stuff like that. So, you know, if I quit golf tomorrow, they'd be supportive. If I, you know, had the worst turn of my life next week, they'd be supportive. If I won the US Open in 4 months, they're super level, super loving. So that's a big deal. That's, you know, a lot of people, I guess it's different for everybody based on the experience you had growing up, but nothing was ever forced on me at all, which was really nice.
So your dad got you into golf. Would you say he's the biggest influence you had, or are there other coaches, other people along the way, maybe on the same golf course that you grew up on, that influenced your journey now to become a UGA golf player?
I don't know. I think he's always the person I call after a tough day or a good day. So he's probably one of the biggest influences. But he always, once he realized that I had a real passion for it, then he always made sure that I had good coaching. You know, he never took any shortcuts financially to make sure I had the best of everything. And you know, that was obviously just, it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't forced. It was just because, you know, he knew that I loved it. So he wanted to, you know, provide the best opportunity for me. But I went to a coach early on who's really good. But I'd say a big person in my life has been my current swing coach, a guy named Mike Perpich, who's out of Johns Creek, Georgia. And he just coaches out of a small public course called River Pines, which is right down the road from Atlanta Athletic Club. And I started going to him when I was 10 years old, and I still work with him today. And, you know, he takes a ton of time with me. answers any questions I have. I think once you get to like a certain level of athletics, you like, and you want to, if you really want to take your game to the next level, you've got to want to do it, and that involves asking a ton of questions. And he's never acted like it was a favor. Like if I've ever had a question about my swing or approach to golf, mentality, whatever it is, he's never acted like it was a favor. He's always taken really good time with me, and that was a big thing because he's always made it feel like I was welcome to ask as much as I wanted, which helped. But I think other than him, the golf course I grew up playing golf at, Berkeley Hills, is middle class country club. It's nothing like super crazy. Like it's not like a $100,000 initiation golf course. Like it's just kind of a whole bunch of good old boys that just hang out all day. So
Yeah. That's where it's at.
yeah, no, and they'll let you hear it. I had a guy out there from the time I was probably 6 to the time I was. If I reminded him of it today, he'd still call me this, but I could never beat him in a putting contest. He was like a 4-time club champion out at the golf course, and he's really good at putting. I could never beat him in a putting contest. I'd play him every single day, and he said, "I'm going to call you beat down until you beat me in a putting
That's
contest."
crazy.
So like, they
That's
kind of
awesome.
toughen you up. They toughened me up a little bit just because I feel like from a very young age I was exposed to some pretty, I guess what some would call mentally damaging trash talk. So
Yeah, that's
like
not good.
I don't
Some
know.
bullying.
No, but it was a good thing. It kind of shaped me a little bit into who I am now. So yeah.
So go back a little bit and kind of walk us through your childhood where, and you've seen this through high school, through middle school, even elementary school, if you remember, of a life as a student athlete, right? And whether it's college student athlete or just being an athlete on a golf course is, oh, like, I don't have anything to do today. I'm going to do homework and play video games. It's like, no, I have to be on the course at 10 years old for 3 hours. How does that shape how you grew up to become the man you are today, whether it's how you approach tasks, how you approach competition, time management? How did golf specifically, and having to grow up with a completely different schedule and overloading much more than other people, how did that shape you?
Well, I'm going to start off by saying that I've never been a very time-conscious person. I'm getting better at being on time. It's always something I've really struggled with.
You're on time today. That's all we need.
I was on time today. I actually might have been a little bit early, which is good for me. You ask anybody on the golf team here, like they'd say I'd probably run on my own time, which is not a good thing at all. But I'm working on it. But I don't know. I think there's just a lot of time sacrifice. I think the one thing I remember most, and it didn't really like occur until high school. Elementary and middle school, you couldn't drive anywhere. It wasn't like there was like a lot socially going on, so you're kind of just in your own little bubble anyway. So like if you spent a whole entire day on the golf course or a weekend at a golf tournament, you didn't feel like you were missing anything. But I think like the first time I experienced like real sacrifice was like, or it felt like I was like missing out on something that everybody else was getting to experience, was like high school football. Because I'd always leave on like Thursdays for tournaments.
Yeah.
And like that was kind of a thing, like pre being recruited here as a tournament that I would have to go to. But like obviously it would be like a situation where I'd be like, oh, like it's the last home high school football game of the season. Like I really want to go to that. It's just kind of it's kind of little things like that where, you just sacrifice small experiences for your sport, and I think that's a really tough thing to do. It's like I wasn't like in high school. I mean, I didn't do terrible in school, but I probably was not academically qualified to come to Georgia. Like just based on merit, I would not have gotten in. So, I feel like a lot of people were like, kind of looked at me and like, oh man, you're so lucky that you're good at golf and like this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of athletes have probably experienced this. But every time somebody would say something like that to me, I'd just kind of be like, well, there's a lot of sacrifice that came in to that as well. Like a lot of weekends, group get-togethers I missed, high school football games, stuff like just social. Like you sacrifice a lot of experiences to, kind of get yourself to a certain level where you can continue playing sports. So
Yeah. No, it's funny. My parents say a very very similar thing where I try and be at the top of my class as much as I can, and maybe I don't do well in a class or something, and my parents will tell me, they'll be like, listen, it's fine. You're not absolutely crushing this class while they're studying. You're playing, right?
Yeah.
And it's okay to have a somewhat of a balance of like, listen, you need to prioritize different aspects of your life. And I think from kind of what you said to my experience as well is you learn not only to sacrifice specific things, but what are you sacrificing and how are you prioritizing that as well? It's like, yeah, you're going to put your golf game first, and even if that means at a slight sacrifice to you specifically, some academic stuff,
Yeah.
right? And it's funny because you said I have the awareness and I know that I'm like the guy that runs on my own time, right? And you know that it happens and you have the awareness of what's going on, but you still have to choose to do the sacrifices. And especially when you know there's the high school football games. Like me, I was like the most isolated kid ever in high school. I didn't get social media till I was like 19, so I didn't know what's going on ever.
God.
Yeah, no, I was I was one of those weirdos, dude.
Was that by choice?
Yeah, and I just never wanted to.
Just didn't want to.
And it wasn't like my parents would show me stuff on Instagram or whatnot all the time. I got Instagram for the pure reason because the first year I was in college, they're like, oh, you can make money through social media. I was like, oh, bet. Let me just get this Instagram app. I didn't know what to do, but I mean, it is funny. Like when you talk about middle school being isolated, right? And you're like in your own bubble. It's almost like a good habit you develop because then you learn the FOMO, the fear of missing out, later on.
Yeah.
You think you've gotten better at worse, especially in college when there's a lot of stuff you can miss out on. Those first high school games, those stung and those hurt.
Yeah.
Here in college, when literally every day you can go out and just freaking do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Is it better?
I mean, I don't really think about it at all, honestly.
Yeah.
Like I think, I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know. I don't really get it anymore because my days kind of centered around what I do on the golf course, whether that's a good thing or bad thing. Mm-hmm. So.
But by choice.
Yeah, by choice. So it's like, I probably practice a little bit more than golf it takes a lot of time. Some people don't feel that they have to practice much. I'm personally one of the people that I don't feel that the just set of tools that have been given to me like athletically are as good as other people's, like other golfers around me. So I feel like I have to work maybe a touch harder to, play to a level that I'm satisfied with. So I feel like I spend a little bit more time out there. But like that's something I think it all changes once you like achieve certain goals. Like I think before I committed, I was and there was like no sort of sight as to where I was going to be able to get, and I was missing different things. I think those probably stung a little bit worse because I was like, what if I'm just missing like all this fun stuff now, and then I'm never going to get anywhere with golf? Like that's kind of there. I think post committing here was when I was like, okay, well, like now I've actually got a reason to, like it's, like it's
more real, right?
Yeah, it becomes a lot more real. It's like, okay, well now, I've gotten to this level now, like everything I do from here on out is to take it to the pro level.
Yeah.
So I think it got easier then, but I don't really experience anything like that anymore. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Go step back and maybe talk a little bit about some of the biggest challenges, like setbacks, childhood setbacks, right? You started when you're 5. In that time, 15 years until you get to college, stuff must have happened. Give me some of the hardest that you had to overcome.
Ooh. I think the hardest thing for me to overcome, honestly, and this was nothing I really had any control over, but I was like a really late bloomer in terms of like growth. So like
Physical growth.
I was like I was like short.
Okay.
I was tiny. So I think I entered high school as like 5'1" or 5'2".
Yeah.
I was a midget.
Not much changed.
And then And then, yeah, yeah, thanks a lot. No, but then my sophomore year of high school, I had a growth spurt and then shot up to like 5'8". So,
Wow.
I don't know. I think that was the toughest thing because for a long time, like I started playing golf at such an early age that like by the time other people were getting into it, I was really good.
Mm-hmm.
So I was blitzing people, and then people that I had beaten my whole entire life started to beat me about middle
They
school.
caught up. Yeah.
And then that kind of leads to like a feeling of just kind of lost like love because you're just like,
Yeah.
oh, I used to be good at this.
Yeah.
When really you don't really have like much control over where you're at, like
Yeah.
physically. Like I just wasn't in the same spot as other kids were. So I was like, wow, this kind of stinks. But then once I grew, I kind of refound the love for it because I was like, oh, like now I actually hit the ball far enough to play these golf courses. I can actually match up to these like other kids my age physically and people older than me. I didn't feel so strained or limited. So, I mean, I think that was probably the hardest thing. I mean, if you're looking at like ages 5 to 15, yeah, that would probably be the toughest.
And it's easy, like when we're here now, when we're in college, and we can step back and see, okay, I was a short guy.
Yeah.
I struggled with that. When you're in that moment, I don't know, you were 10 years old, did you understand it's like, okay, these kids are getting better because they're developing physically, I'm not, or do you literally just think, I suck, I hate the sport?
I literally thought I sucked.
Right?
I was like, wow, this is just like I'm just not as good. And my dad would kind of like try to remind me, cautiously, because he didn't want to tell me that I was like tiny. But like I obviously.
But he would tell you.
But
it's
he was
because,
like, you just don't. He's like, you're not this. He's like, you're just not the same. You're not physically on the same level as they are yet. Like,
did that hurt or no?
No, not really. I mean, it was just he was always very reassuring and being like, it'll come eventually. And like, it got to a point like, freshman, sophomore year of high school, where I was like, I don't know, like,
am I going to stay tiny forever?
I think I'm just going to be here. But
yeah.
But once it happened, I actually completely lost my swing because, as I'm sure you probably experienced with tennis,
Yeah.
like growth, whether it be like strength, weight. I notice it more now since I've had this growth spurt because I didn't even know it was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
But since I shot up so fast, I just you kind of lose awareness of like different parts of your body that you didn't know you had like subconscious control over.
Yeah.
So
you're like, holy cow, I have the capability to hit the ball so far away.
Completely different.
Yeah.
And I think like my summer going into my junior year, I played really, really well, and that's what got me recruited here. I won a few times and won some big tournaments, but literally, and that was the year of COVID. But 2 months, probably three months prior to that, I played a high school tournament down at Georgia Southern's university course and shot like 87. And I walked off the golf course that day, and I was like, wow, I'm genuinely, I think I might quit this game. Like I was like, I'm supposed to be getting recruited in like 6 months, and like this is like, it was just miserable. But then, COVID actually happened right after that, which was kind of a blessing in disguise because I got a ton of time off from school, so I got to figure it out and played good. But yeah, I don't know. It's just that whole entire growth spurt, roller coaster, not growing for a long time was kind of brutal thing for me growing up. But
let's talk about now that you're big. What have you learned in terms of, all right, you grew through some of the hard moments. You're older now. You're in college. You have that sort of assertiveness. All right, I'm a good player. I play for UGA Golf. What's your mindset going into practice and tournaments?
It's actually funny you asked that because I still really struggle with that. One thing that I'm currently working on right now a bunch is self-talk.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't call myself a naturally negative person, but I'm pretty dry, and I feel like I'm pretty realistic in terms of like, whether it's what any of us have or whether it's what I have. Like, I try to be, I'm very real with myself, which is like, it can be a good and bad thing, because I think the biggest thing that I figured out since being in college is that sometimes like to take your game to a certain level, you kind of have to maybe even lie to yourself a little bit about how good you are. especially in the talk up here. Like, you want to be a humble human being, but at the same time, in your brain, you want to be telling yourself that you're the best at what you do.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've always really struggled with, finding a medium.
Yeah, I mean, you're a pretty honest, upfront guy.
But like, I have a very hard time with like self-talk on the golf course, like bad shots. I mean, I'm on the outside, I'm pretty level for the most part, like in tournaments, but on the inside, it's like it's kind of always been a little bit of an emotional roller coaster unless I know like everything is exactly how it should be.
Yeah.
So, I mean, right, what I'm saying to myself when I go practice now is like, I think the 1% better every single day is kind of corny, because I just don't think that that's true. Necessarily, I do believe that there's going to be bad days, and that there's probably going to be a lot more steps back than steps forward, and the steps forward that you take, you do not realize you're taking until something really good happens. You're like, oh, like, I guess all the days that I spent not really knowing, if what I was doing was going to work, like, I guess it works now. But I don't know. I think.
But the steps back, you notice immediately.
Yeah, the steps back, you notice. You're just like, well, this stinks. But we're fortunate enough to have some tenured PGA Tour pros that live in Athens and practice at our facility.
Who?
Brendan Todd and Chris Kirk. And Brendan Todd, like a couple of years ago, like completely lost his golf game and was probably, from what he said, he was basically like, he was probably one more year trying professional golf away from like buying into pizza franchises and like just hanging it up. And he had won on the PGA Tour before.
Way.
He was really good in college. He just lost it.
Yeah.
And he's basically like 2 months later, he won like 2 times in 3 weeks in the PGA Tour, and he's been doing great ever since. But I mean, he got the driver yips, and I've gone through a pretty tough time this year with just some changes in my swing and stuff. And the way he kind of put it to me, which really helped, was he's like, all you're really trying to do is like stack good days together of what you're working on. He's like, I wouldn't, he's like, not every single day has to be like a test. He's like, you can like try to like, especially if you're hitting it bad or you're playing bad or something's in a bad spot, like just try to put positive days together. Like, don't try to get it, like you're on a 5-year plan, you're not on a 1-week plan. You're not trying to get as good as you can in, 72 hours. Like you're trying to get as good as you can for when you turn 23 years old. He's like, he's like, stacking good days together is just a very important thing. And that's kind of the new approach that I have towards it. And that really helps me, because I don't feel so much pressure when I go out to practice for everything to be like perfect by the time I leave. It's just like, if I was hitting it really good the day before and the day after I'm still hitting it good, like I don't try to search for anything. It's just like, I'm still hitting it good. Like that's good enough. So,
see if you can relate a little to this. And there, you talk a lot about kind of stringing your good days together and putting a good perspective on good and bad. Stuff we talk a lot about in tennis is controlling your controllables. But the annoying thing is sometimes, and I know that golf specifically, one of the reasons I think you can give great input in this is, for example, a tennis serve, you're the one who's holding the ball, you throw it up, it's completely under your control. To me, if you take that same principle and put it into a golf swing, the ball is not moving. The only thing that's moving is you. It's almost like, all right, you can completely control everything that's happening. But in reality, if that was true, you wouldn't have a bad day, right? Like, how do you balance a little bit of, the feeling of losing control might be one of the most painful things, right? When you feel lost, you mentioned lost, you felt confused, especially when things are going bad. But understanding it's like golf, physically from an outside perspective, the ball isn't moving. It's all your fault.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas
exactly.
tennis, okay, we can have people hitting it back. Oh, too good, well played.
Yeah.
But you know what, even if you play incredible and maybe the guy across from you or next to you plays a great round, you're still happy with how you played. But the thing that pisses golfers off, and I just know this from being 5 times out in the range, is when you yourself play bad.
Yeah.
Right? And that feeling of losing control is the most annoying thing ever. And how would you say, the pros that live here in Athens, the stuff you've learned in college, and Coach Hack, right?
Yeah.
What's some of the stuff that they have said to help you, especially, I believe golf is one of the most, if not the most mental sport, in terms of that feeling of controlling your controllables, and what do you do when you start losing control of situations?
I think a lot of golfers, and I've gotten into a habit of doing this too, is like the harder you actually try to control the controllables, it gets like worse, because there's definitely such thing as trying to be too perfect with a golf shot. I kind of always thought that perfectionists have a tough time with golf, like on the golf course, because not because, maybe not with like the practice side, because it's like a good thing when you practice to want to be perfect, like that's what you strive for. Mm-hmm. But when you get on the golf course, you can't really try to be too perfect, and because in reality, the amount of conditions that you deal with on a golf course are probably, they're way more than you deal with in probably any other sport. Like just kind of with what you were saying, like in tennis, you can have a guy across from you that's just a freak athlete and played an unbelievable match, and you might have played the way you want to and executed your game plan and just lose. And that's okay. With golf, you kind of have to take that same mentality to it, and like picking out the positives is a big thing with that. But there's the saying that me and my coach have is focusing on what you're doing and not a result. Mm-hmm. If you get super result oriented and you're trying to control where the ball goes and you're trying to make the ball go to an exact spot, like obviously you want to pick out small targets and different stuff like that, manage the course properly. But like the more you can focus on what you're doing and not the result of a golf shot is a big deal. Yeah. But as soon as you get wrapped up in what the ball is doing, that's when it gets really, really tough. Because, even like for a super high level golfer, like you're only going to see so many perfect golf shots. Yeah. So like if perfect is the only thing you're going for on a golf course, then you're kind of on
you're going to be disappointed.
You're on a road to nowhere. Yeah. Because you only see so many, and it just makes it harder to even hit the golf ball, to be honest. So.
Yeah. Let's go last couple here. Let's talk about Georgia specifically. Take a little bit of what your Georgia golf team culture looks like. Kind of go through, what does that look like? What does Coach Hack preach? What do you guys synthesize in the locker room? How do you guys go out and compete as a team? And how does that specifically impacted your game and the people around you?
So Coach Hack kind of recruits, around the locker room. He doesn't really recruit, obviously there's a talent aspect, but he tries to leave the talent out of it as much as possible and just recruit guys that are going to mesh really well. Because his big thing is like, if guys get along with each other and they want to be around each other, then they're going to make each other better. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of his big thing. But him and our assistant head coach, Jim Douglas, are like super, super hands off. And like, we don't actually have any scheduled practice times. Wow. So like, they don't ever like tell us like, okay, we want you out here from 12 o'clock to 2:30, like working on wedges, or, 3 to 4 working on putting. They're never actually really up on the range with us. But what we do a lot is qualify. So they'll do qualifying for like 3 spots, and then the coach will pick 2 players. Like here, if we're taking 6 guys to a tournament, like if we're taking 6 guys to a tournament, we're qualifying for 6 spots. Unless somebody's finished like top 10 in the week before, and they're exempt. Like the only way you can exempt yourself is by good play. So it's probably as close to like a professional golf, like how the PGA Tour is of any university.
And you think that benefits you specifically It's more tough mentally, I would assume, but you think that prepares you, or?
No, without a doubt. I mean, just because you always, it gives you the feeling of you don't ever get to like kind of rest on your laurels at all, and you don't really ever get to sleep on what you have. Your game always has to be, at 100% ready to go whenever, which is a good thing. But I mean, I think as far as how the team meshes, there's 9 of us, and we pretty much do everything with each other like the entire day. We always, I mean, you have a small team, like you're able to kind of relate. Like it's kind of similar to how you guys have it, where, small teams are like a good thing and can also be a bad thing, because if there's like a guy that not really anybody likes, then it can make it seem a lot worse. But we all try to do things together, and I think that kind of just is easy because our relationship is like with each guy is really good as it is. But we spend a lot of time off the golf course with each other, so it's not just like on the range we're together. So.
And I would say the last thing is, what do you need to do to take your game to the next level, and how does that impact your life outside of golf?
Kind of like what I was talking about a little bit ago with the self-talk. I've got to have a little bit more self-belief, just because it's like such a fleeting thing, because when you're playing good, you like don't ever think it's going to stop.
Yeah.
And then when you're playing bad, you don't ever think it's going to stop.
Yeah.
So having like a constant like positive base to like for your mind to work off of on the golf course, that would be really good for me. And it's getting a lot better just because I'm not putting so much pressure on myself every single day. But I think, self-talk and how I think of myself on the golf course is a big thing. And I think, the expectation and pressure I put on myself and not trying to be too perfect is another big thing. And I just think, I think what happens on the golf course for me at times can make me pretty high strung, like off the golf course.
Yeah.
So I feel like the more, the better of an outlook I have on it, like before I even get to the golf course and start practicing, the better, life is off of it for me. But yeah, I mean, just like leaving golf, being able to leave golf at the golf course and not bring it home with you and kind of like make it the entire, like your entire being is a big deal. And it's something that I'm currently working on and will continue to. So, yeah.
And that's a good message for the average rangers at home.
Yes.
Don't break your clubs over a range day.
Do not break your clubs. Never break a club. Never slam a club. You look like an idiot. So,
there we go.
Yeah.
Cool stuff. All right. Thank you so much to the Players Lounge. Thanks for the Mark for having us. Carter, it's been an incredible time.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.